At some point, I managed to break through this wall of reinforced concrete, because for us the question of legalization was the most important one at the very beginning. Because the war started, everything Russian caused rejection and a desire to immediately grab a machine gun and pull the trigger. It was clear to me that this is what I had to do, because I believe that the most important war that is being waged, which must be won, is the war of meanings. Not a war of weapons, not a war of technology, but a war of meanings. It was obvious to me that it was necessary to create a unit that would deal with propaganda and try to reach the citizens of Russia at least. To reach those who are still undecided, those who do not understand where there is evil, where there is good, where there is light, where there is darkness. My name is Anton. I'm the commander of the intelligence unit of a sabotage and reconnaissance group of RVC. I am the co-organizer of the RVC. Together with a group of friends who served from the first days of the full-scale war, who have been there even since 2014 in different units, we decided to get together to implement the idea that has long stirred our minds. We organized this team together. That's why I'm in the RVC from the very beginning. Since I was a teenager from an early age, I was engaged in opposition activities, sometimes in quite radical ways, because that was the only way I saw the struggle, standing at rallies and then paying fines to the state for it. It always seemed ridiculous and useless to me. It never worked. Before the full-scale war, I was in the Azov movement Centuria. From the 24th, from the first days, I was in Azov Territorial Defense, later Azov Special Operations Forces, now called the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade. Before I got to the RVC, I spent a year in what used to be called the Azov Special Operations Forces. My call sign is White. I got into the Russian volunteer corps from captivity. In the RVC, I am in the assault group commander. And somehow we were given an opportunity. And it was like that. Why are you called Russian Volunteer Corps, not Russia's? What is the difference between Russian and Russia's? I realized a long time ago that it is very important to always call things by their proper names. Because when we start hiding the meaning behind some new terms or tricky names, the essence is lost. The fact is that Russian is an ethnicity. Let's say that we all know very well that there are Chechen units, there are Georgian units. They usually exist on the basis of ethnicity. The same applies to the RVS. We understand that first of all in this war, which is existential not only for Ukrainians but also for Russians, we should be concerned about the fate of our people. For us, Russia's people was an insulting word. Russia's people means Philistines, it means consumers of propaganda, it means multinationals. It means a person of any nationality who lives in Russia. In Russia, the word Russias began to be introduced as a designation of a civil nation, as a designation of all the inhabitants of Russia who live there. Chechens, Russians, Kazakhs, Yakuts, whoever. The ideology of Russian nationalism comes in different forms. There is the imperial one, which says that everyone should live together. And there is the opposite point of view, that different peoples should live in different countries, to his power, nothing more. cynical and brazen. I was especially offended by the fact that in all of this he covered himself with Russian people and the fight for the rights of Russians. That is, before that, when in Russia, ridiculously enough, there were criminal cases for walking in a "I am Russian" t-shirt. Can you imagine that, roughly speaking, in the 2010s, you could go to jail for that? Well, not prison, but a suspended sentence. Russians are not allowed to create national cultural autonomies. Russians are not allowed to create organizations based on nationality. Russians, in fact, have no right of a nation. People have found themselves in a situation where, seemingly living in a state that is named after a derivative of their name, they do not, in fact, have the right of a nation. So, what does it mean? It is an opportunity for people to solve their own problems together. It means Russians do not have the right, as I have already said, neither to national cultural autonomy nor to organizations based on nationality. Even Russian countrymanship communities cannot be established in institutes. Let's say, formally there are still Ukrainian countrymanship communities in Russia even though a war is going on. But there are no Russian ones. It's simply impossible. How was it stated? You have the whole country, why do you need it? And in the end it turns out that if I had been born, for example, in Ingush, I would address the president of Ingushetia with my problem. And he would bring this problem to the sacred Vladimir Putin. And the Russian has no one to ask, he has no representative. So Putin is the president of the Russias. So because of the fact that once a long time ago such a civilizational choice was made, that Russians have to die near Avdiivka, simply because these are the geopolitical interests of the state called the Russian Federation, which actually has no relation to them. The goal is the same, the preservation of power, the preservation of this criminal syndicate, which came out of Putin's entourage and seized literally everything in Russia. And in order to keep it, of course, they are not sorry to send waves of these people to Avdiivka, wave after wave, and they die. They die. Nobody even takes them away. The wounded are not taken away. They are left lying there and freezing, then they die. I have these weird feelings like, what were these people thinking? What were they thinking? What's in their heads? It's hard for me to get into their heads to understand, but they're going to their deaths. What for? There is a certain Russian irredenta. The idea is that those lands where Russians live, they should be united, because then it will be good for everyone. Why? It's unclear. They don't see that in fact the plan is not to create some big Russian state, where everyone will suddenly become Russian. It's really surreal. But the plan is to create a multinational empire. For some reason, these logical chains work very hard for these people. It means they can't explain the fact that they elected Putin. The fact that the Russian people in Russia became the most humiliated group that can be killed and raped. But they think they can go to Ukraine to fight for the so-called Russian world. These people have big difficulties with connecting these logical chains. Therefore, again, I don't know how many Russians need to be killed. I mean, not by us, but let's say in Russia by ethnic groups, Caucasian and so on, so that they could realize something. That all this is probably not just like that, all this is probably because someone in the Kremlin is making some decisions on the importation of migrants and so on. We are the only ones who are engaged in a real fight against the regime. The word Nazis is quite a trigger for Russians. They believe that all people in Ukraine are Nazis. Someone who is against Putin, they are Nazis. What is your reaction to the word Nazis? I am not intimidated by the word, nor am I offended or confused by it. People who justify massacres, who put Stalin and other executioners on a pedestal, who want to put everyone in the gulags, so they call someone a Nazi. Well, okay, fine. So what? They are themselves adherents of far more cannibalistic ideas than any Nazis ever dreamed of. Everyone is using this only for Ukraine. Our ideology is about struggle. That is why we are looking for resolute guys who, like us, are ideologized, who are also right-wing conservative traditionalists. And first of all, we always say to everyone, guys, you must understand one important point. You are taking a single ticket. You will return home to your wives, mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers, families, and home streets only after our victory. And no other way. You must be aware of that. You must understand it. And a person thinks, oh, do I really need it? What about me? Oh, what's in there? Oh, I'll think about it. That's it. That's not our person. The one who says, yes, I understand everything. I've weighed up. I'm ready. Well, that's the first stage. Second stage. Are you even in shape? Are you even okay? Because modern warfare, despite its technological sophistication, is still a test of the body of the spirit. Digging a trench, running, carrying shells. Cold, rain, mud, frost, heat. It is all naturally a test for our physiology. That's why, of course, we are waiting for young, healthy, strong, ideologized guys who are ready to fight, ready for the hardships of military life. We are waiting for them, of course. And we already have sports standards. They are on our website of the Russian Volunteer Corps. You can look there, you can assess yourself how fit you are.